what we're going to be taking a look at is the first development footage of the League of Legends fighting game. I'm one of the rare few, absolute rare few. I have achieved actual purity. I have never played League of Legends or Fortnite. What you're looking at is genuine human purity. Non-tainted human being. No LOL or Fortnite ever here. Ever even... I don't even think I've seen more than 30 seconds of each game. So what better than us to judge deeply what the hell they're going to show off? No one else. That's what I'm trying to say. So, what we're looking at is a fighting game. That was a fighting game.
What I think League of Legends players expect from this game.
Characters were battling each other.
In some ways,
It looks like it looks very much like Rising Thunder.
It's a great game, but what we've been seeing is that people are really excited to see Runeterran champions like in a new light, even like from a new camera angle. Making fighting games is really, really tough. These are intricate games to make, and while we're a good ways towards making something that we think is really cool, we still have a long way to go. We're gonna go dark for a while after this, so please don't expect anything soon, but know that we're here working hard for you.
The best bit that we can get from this is that Riot's got a lot of money. Like, these guys have money. They have so much money. They have so much money that they can do whatever the hell they want, and that has been apparent over a few years from people that work there. But what it leads is to these giant budgets for League of Legends, just one game. And everyone said for so many years, why don't they make a League of Legends fighting game? So long story short, the guys that are making this are the same dudes that made a little game called Rising Thunder. And Rising Thunder was made by the Cannons, I believe Tom and Tony. And for you guys that don't know who they are, they founded EVO, like the fighting game championship series. They were old. They were classic / veteran Street Fighter players, and mostly known for their prominence in like the Capcom scene, because a lot of the FGC, a lot of like the core FGC that you have known for many years was rooted in old Capcom games. And that means that not only through that process they made one of the biggest tournament things ever for fighting games, they also were the founders of GGPO, which not many people realize stands for Good Game Peace Out, in terms of playing somebody online and having the experience not be total trash, because every online experience for fighting games was total trash in the early 2000s. So early 2000s, they come up with GGPO. They find a way to actually play people online and have it function. They modify it, they change it. They stopped working on it a long time ago, and it's just been sort of adopted into Fightcade and all this other stuff and turned into their own proprietary thing. So the cool part is that their games have run very good. Rising Thunder ran fantastic online, probably one of the best online fighting games there is. Did I love Rising Thunder? I played it for about a day. We played it for like a stream session, and then I came back and played it a little bit more, and that was about all I was compelled to play of it. I thought it was interesting, the fact that there was no special moves, that you could essentially have button commands for like special moves. But it was a very like reserved fighting game, you know? Like there was some cool stuff you could do. It was very Street Fighter-y. It was like it felt like Street Fighter 4, but with less mechanically, and there was like robots. So not many people heard of it because it essentially went dark like very fast and then came back. I think you can actually download Rising Thunder right now. But a lot of people liked it because it is at its core, very like grounded, neutral sort of fighting game with some crazy stuff, which is good. It wasn't super grounded neutral like Mortal Kombat, where they try to do like Mortal Kombat 11 type stuff. It was an interesting game. It did have some tough combos, and it did have some creative stuff to it, which was good. Yeah, it had a lot of cooldowns, cooldown fighter. I'm a big fan of fighting games that take things and allow you to have like a lot of creativity and a lot of setups and a lot of movement and a lot of mobility. I think that's what makes a game like King of Fighters, which we have recently been playing a whole bunch, sorta. very interesting because games like KOF are very much movement and footsie based, like absolutely. But they give you a lot of mobility. They give you the ability to roll, to super jump, to back roll, to run, to short hop, like all this shit. And that's always made them inherently a blast, like a lot of fun to play. To me, it really looks like Rising Thunder. Like there's a lot of very Rising Thundery elements, and I think we can pull some stuff from here. This is a big one. Easily accessible keyboard-based gameplay. And that was a defining trait of Rising Thunder, is that you didn't really need an arcade stick. It was very easy to play Rising Thunder on a keyboard because of the way special moves were mapped to buttons. You don't want to, like, for example, why would you want to take your entire League of Legends audience, which is mostly going to be the ones that are going to be playing this, and then tell them you have to buy peripherals to play it outside of your keyboard? Nah, not at all. I don't think this game is inherently going to be super successful. Like, I don't. Fighting games live and die by characters, by visuals, and by technically content. And gameplay can absolutely take a backseat sometimes for hardcore fan base, which is unfortunate because you think gameplay would be number one, but it's a very, very sad thing that that's not true sometimes. These games will find their success essentially from the amount of people that will just invest. The FGC is a completely different thing. The fact that, for example, Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was the biggest thing in the FGC for years, for almost like 4 years. It was loved and beloved, wins Marvel on every single stream for years. Everyone loved it. However, the developers didn't give a shit. It didn't matter how big things were in the FGC. So the idea is that they need to make a game that grabs the audience of League of Legends and tries to like pull them in some way and make shit work. So I don't think just having League be a game with a wide variety of characters that people know and love for the past 10 years, I don't think it just being in fighting game form is going to be enough to get people just to jump in immediately. It's going to have a very accessible pay model, if not be free to play in some way, which it most likely will be. It's going to have things to get people into it, which I'm already assuming it will. They are completely different things. Like, sure, League players and fighting game players share a lot of similarities. Like, I knew a lot of fighting game dudes that played a lot of League and stuff like that. But there's a lot of folks that are League players. Like, they play League, and that's like the game they play. And that happens to a lot of fighting game people too, where they just play fighting games and they don't play anything else. I know so many people from the FGC that don't play dick else. They just play Third Strike, or whatever the hell it might be. That's all they like. Like, do you like fighting games? No, I just like this. So League's got a super hardcore fan base, and I don't know if this is like, everyone's assuming this is going to be the game to take everything by storm. I think the game has to do that. I don't think just being a League of Legends fighting game is gonna be the game to do that. Like, there has been fighting games in the past that have been given creative licenses of some of the biggest shit on the planet, and the fighting game doesn't go anywhere. So that comes down to a variety of reasons. It is absolutely too early to judge. All I'm saying is, based on what we're seeing, it is a fairly traditional 1 versus 1, most likely cooldown based, like, grounded fighting game is what it's going to be. So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see how crazy it gets. But even from like the footage we're looking at, it looks like it's going to be a relatively like somewhat toned down fighting game, which is why I hope there's air teching, which is kind of interesting. Like, she actually teched out of the air right there, so there's elements of like Guilty Gear. I think some of the games that are the most engaging fighting game wise are the games that give you stuff that you can do on offense and defense. So when you have like defensive capabilities that match your offensive capabilities, that can be very impressive, especially if they require tight timing or require like a skill barrier. I think that's really cool. But the thing with this game is that it doesn't appear to be team-based in any way. I really thought that this was going to be a 3 versus 3 or a team-based fighting game in some way to sort of fashion itself the way, League of Legends is. And for you to play with other people in some way. You to like make a crew of people that actually play with each other. It falls in line with exactly what like League looks like. I don't think it's bad looking, like from what they're showing off right here, because this is, as they said, this is potentially extremely early. I think this game still needs to be impressive, right? I think they still gotta wow people with gameplay. Like they gotta wow people with visuals and gameplay mechanics that are over the top and potentially like big and fun. It does look good. Like the faces are animating and stuff like that. That's a big deal, especially for early development. Like the faces are animating, dude. Like that's like one of the last things you do in like fighting game development of any kind, like is the head tracking and stuff like that. But what I don't hope happens, and I don't mean this to specifically call out another game, but I have to use it as an example because it's one of the only examples I can use right now, is the Grand Blue game. Grand Blue is a huge game, right? Like almost on the same level of League overseas. So the transition of that game, they specifically did to be simple, easy to absorb for the people playing the mobile game. And the Grand Blue is an absolute incredible looking game, but it is extremely simplified. And especially from the developer it comes from, which is sort of known for kind of a variety of mechanics and a lot of stuff they can do. The visuals fit very, very well with Grand Blue, but my God, its gameplay just doesn't resemble what the developers are used to at all. Like it's extremely limited on what the characters are capable of and what is happening mechanically in the game. And I don't think it's bad. It's just like, it's not a bad game. Some people will like it, but there's like, you feel like you figured the game out in 30 minutes. Beautiful game. And I truly hope that isn't the case for this thing. Like, I would like to be intrigued by a game that has characters that look like this. I think what I want the most, just give us mobility, man. Just give us some interesting mobility options. I also very, very, very much think mobility makes a fighting game. To me, like being able to there to be like a skill gap between you doing special moves, combos, but also mobility, being able to take your character and go from a situation that you're familiar with and getting them to move around the screen. That comes down to like game feel and like all this shit. Yeah, Melee's a perfect example of that. Sure, Smash Brothers is even a perfect example of that, just in general. Having mobility be a thing that you incorporate into your game, that you allow your characters to do, in whether or not some characters can do it some way or another, please, because it feels like for a lot of fighting games lately, like the mobility's been ripped out of them. Like we don't want you to be moving your character around a whole bunch. Yeah, Tekken is an amazing example. Amazing example. Tekken's still a weird one in my opinion, but a very, very good example because it's like animation canceling. So all I gotta say to like the guys that are making this, because they are extremely versed in fighting games. Like these guys have been doing this shit forever and they've been playing everything for a hell of a long time. I just personally hope that there is a tolerance to mobility, like allow the characters to move around. And there are some fighting games that take that to an extreme, like for example, like Dragon Ball FighterZ almost has a mechanic of mobility that takes it a little bit too far. It doesn't mean that it's got to go all the way in one direction or the other. You have to find an equal a ground in between that works out, because sometimes you make too much mobility happen and some crazy shit. Some fucking crazy shit happens and it becomes frustrating. So I hope that's involved here. I hope that this game has a decent amount of player creativity at its root, at its core. Because it feels like fighting games are being too safe. And we're talking about the most esports of esports thing in the world, which is League of Legends, right? fucking dawn of esports next to like the StarCraft or something like that. And a lot of these games that go esports, that have like a plan to go esports, specifically are designed to be like, we have to make it balanced. This is going too much in one direction. We're gonna have to tone things down so that we'll make it as balanced of a game as possible. I don't agree with that. I think fighting games are a thing that should allow for creativity and player expression. And if things are a little too crazy or not crazy enough, then you can go in and tweak them. We have the wonderful luxury of going in and messing around with shit now and having that be a relatively quick process. So for the sake of esports, I hope this game doesn't fall into the same list that some fighting games have that is stifling for gameplay reasons. And that's the thing that makes me not want to come back to a lot of fighting games now. Sometimes it's just that I don't feel like there's much I can learn in this game that is really cool or I can pull off, and it's not just combos, that's just anything. I don't know how balanced League of Legends is. It might be the most balanced experience in the world or not. I'm assuming it's not. I'm assuming things have horrible matchups and some have good matchups, and that's the way fighting games are supposed to be. They're showing a very, very limited amount, and this is, from what we have seen right here, like this is an extremely small slice of life of this game. They have shadows in, they have a small amount of lighting engine in there. It looks like a game that's obviously going to be scalable to run on like all hardware. So it's got that League of Legends, you know, polish that it sort of has to its champions. But there's not very much to go off here. Like you can see like the things they're going for. You can see the similarities to Rising Thunder. It doesn't look terrible. Like, am I extremely excited about this? I'm glad that it is a 2D fighting game. I'm glad it's a 2D plane fighting game. I'm glad they're doing some interesting stuff with the camera a little bit when hit stun kicks in. But based on the way the developers were talking about this, you may not be seeing this game until the 20th anniversary of League of Legends. Like you might be playing Marvel vs. Capcom 5 or Street Fighter 6 before this game comes out. So it's gonna be a while. I'm really glad that these guys are making a game because it didn't seem like that was ever going to happen for a very long time. Because I think them given the chance to get a big budget crazy thing is cool. I just hope that let's let creativity, let that be the motivator for character design. Let that be the motivator for gameplay and mechanics. Because that ends up making the most interesting fighting games in my opinion. Just throw in a character, give them a bunch of tools that seems like it should work. If things are horribly broken, that's just bad game design. But if you throw in a character that has a similar amount of tools that seems like it'll be fun compared to a whole bunch of other cool characters that have tools that seems like it'll be fun, you usually get pretty fun games. I truly hope that's the case for this game.